My name is Theresa Myers. I'm 33 years old. And the moment I stood up at that dinner table with a smile on my face, every single person in that room knew nothing would ever be the same. My husband had just announced in front of both families that his mother was moving into my house. The house my parents spent 20 years saving to buy. The house with my maiden name on the deed. He'd handed her keys, given her a bedroom, and funneled $23,000 of our money through a company that didn't exist. He smiled at me like he expected applause. What happened over the next 45 minutes cost him his marriage, cost his mother her dream home, and exposed a financial crime he never thought I'd find. And the last part? It's a mistake that would have cost me everything if I'd waited one more week to check. To understand how we got to that table, you need to go back 6 months. I work as a nurse practitioner at a hospital in Virginia. 3 night shifts a week, 12 hours each. I love what I do. There's something about being the calm in someone else's storm that fits me. But 12-hour nights don't leave much room for anything else, so I became the person who handled everything at home too. Bills, groceries, meal prep, oil changes, dentist appointments. If it needed doing, I did it. I thought that was strength. Turns out, it was an opening. Grant, my husband, worked as a regional sales manager. Good income, decent hours, plenty of charm. He could walk into a room of strangers and leave with 3 new friends and a lunch invitation. I married him at 28. He was 30. We had a good first year. Quiet, comfortable. The kind of beginning that makes you think you chose well. And then there was the house. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths in a quiet subdivision just south of town. Maple tree in the front yard, a back patio where I drink coffee at 6 in the morning before the street woke up. It was more than I ever thought I'd have at 28. And it was a gift. The most generous one I've ever received. My parents bought it outright. No mortgage, paid in full. My mother cried so hard at the closing table the notary offered her a tissue. My dad, Warren, is 61 now, retired. But for 35 years he was a plumber. Not the kind who runs a company with a fleet of vans. The kind who crawls under houses at 6 in the morning with a wrench and a flashlight, comes home smelling like copper pipe and PVC glue, eats dinner, then drives out again for an emergency call at 10 at night. He drove the same truck for 14 years. My mom, June, worked a grocery register for 22 years. They weren't rich. They were disciplined. 2 weeks before my wedding, my dad slid a manila envelope across their kitchen table. Inside was a deed to the house in Roanoke, paid in cash, recorded in my maiden name. Theresa June Howaren. Not Theresa Myers. Not Grant and Theresa. Just me. Next to the deed was a notarized gift letter signed by both parents. It read, "This property is gifted solely to Theresa June Howaren as her sole and separate property." My dad looked at me and said, "This is yours, Ree. Not his, not theirs. Yours. Keep the paperwork somewhere safe." I thought he was being overly cautious. The old-school worry of a man who'd spent decades fixing other people's broken pipes. I didn't realize he was being prophetic. I filed the deed and the gift letter in a fireproof lockbox in my closet and didn't think about them again for 5 years. Grant was easy to love at first. He remembered my coffee order, the song I played on repeat in nursing school, the fact that I hated cilantro. Charm is the word people used. But charm has a shelf life when it's built on performance instead of principle. By year 2, I noticed a pattern. Every major decision ran through his mother first. New couch? Let me ask Mom. Vacation dates? Mom wanted us to visit that week. I brought it up once, carefully. Grant stared at me like I'd insulted his religion. "She's my mother, Theresa." That was his entire answer. That summer, Vivian, his mother, started visiting on weekends. Grant would invite her Friday afternoon and she'd stay through Sunday. He never asked me. Just told me, "Mom's coming Friday." I finally said, "Grant, I'd appreciate a heads up before you invite anyone to stay." He frowned. She's my mother. She doesn't need an invitation. I looked at him. In my house, everyone needs an invitation. Including your mother. He went quiet. Quiet, I would learn, was how Grant planned. Vivian Myers was 63, retired, and she carried a wound she never let anyone forget. 23 years earlier, her husband walked out, left her with 2 kids, Grant, 12, and Courtney, 5, and a house she couldn't afford alone. The divorce was brutal. He had a lawyer. She didn't. She signed away the house, the car, the retirement account, and walked out with 2 suitcases. Grant told me this story on our 3rd date. Vivian retold it every Thanksgiving. It was her origin story. She wore it like armor. By year 3, Vivian's visits had stopped being visits. She started treating the house like she was the project manager. This kitchen would look better with new cabinets. That wall color is too dark. Then she stopped asking. I came home from a shift one Tuesday to find new curtains in the living room. Cream lace. Replacing the navy linen ones my mother and I had picked together. I bought those with my own money, Vivian said brightly. Consider it a gift. I stood there and let that sentence sit. Then I went to find Grant. The next Saturday, Vivian and I were alone in the kitchen. She was washing dishes. I was drying. And she said it. The line I should have treated as a declaration of war. You married into this family. The house came with you. I put the dish towel down. The house didn't come with anyone, Vivian. My parents bought it for me. She smiled, dried her hands, and walked into the living room without another word. She wasn't arguing. She was stating a belief. And beliefs, I would learn, are harder to fight than arguments. Courtney was Grant's younger sister. 28, lived with Vivian 20 minutes away, and operated like someone who borrows your umbrella and returns it broken without apologizing. She didn't knock. She just appeared. One afternoon I came home and found Courtney in my home office, sitting in my chair, feet on my desk, scrolling her phone. Grant said I could use any room. I called Grant immediately. Did you tell Courtney she can use any room in my house? Pause. It's our house, Theresa. I hung up, walked back to the office, and looked at Courtney. This room is off limits. To everyone. That evening, I installed a keyed lock on the office door. Grant noticed. You're turning this house into a fortress. I looked at him. Then stopped letting people walk through it without asking. 3 weeks later, I came home after a double night shift, 24 hours on my feet, 2 codes, 1 brutal ICU family conversation. I walked past the guest room and stopped. New bedding. A floral duvet. A nightstand with a reading lamp. A framed photo of Grant and Vivian on the dresser. And in the corner, Vivian's suitcase, unpacked, clothes folded neatly in the open closet. I found Grant in the kitchen eating cereal. What happened to the guest room? He didn't look up. Mom's been staying over more. What's the big deal? I told him clearly, Vivian was welcome to visit, but that was not her room. Any changes to this house required my approval. Not his. Not hers. Mine. Grant's face went red. You sound like a landlord, not a wife. And you sound like a man who forgot whose name is on the title. He grabbed his keys and left. 4 days later, I opened the mailbox and found a receipt from a locksmith. 3 key copies, charged to Grant's debit card. I was still holding it when he walked in from the garage. You gave a key to my house to your mother without telling me. He shrugged past me. You and that deed. I picked up my phone and called a locksmith. By 4 that afternoon, every exterior lock on the house was rekeyed. 2 copies, both mine. 1 on my keychain, 1 in the fireproof box with the deed. The next afternoon, Vivian stood at the front door for 3 minutes, turning her key, rattling the knob. Then she called Grant. I heard him say, What do you mean it doesn't work? He looked at me. Did you change the locks? Yes. If she needs to come over, she can knock like a guest. He picked up his jacket and drove to her apartment. I sat alone on the couch and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Ownership. 2 weeks of cold silence. Grant slept in the guest room. Then he came home one evening with a small white box. Smart lock. Yale. We can open the door from our phones. No more physical keys to fight about. It wasn't a terrible idea on the surface. And that's exactly what made it dangerous. Grant's worst moves always looked reasonable. Fine, I said. But I'm the primary admin. No one else gets access without my approval. He agreed. I set up the app. Theresa Myers, primary administrator. Grant Myers, secondary user. 2 users. I checked 3 times. I thought I had it covered. What I didn't account for was that Grant, also an admin, could add new users with no notification to me. No alert. No confirmation request. No pop-up. He could add anyone he wanted and I wouldn't know unless I manually checked the user list. I didn't check for 2 weeks. I was pulling extra shifts, covering for a nurse on maternity leave. 3 nights became 4. 4 became 5. I was exhausted, running on coffee and momentum. And Grant was counting on exactly that. Because tired people don't check the app. Vivian called me directly for the first time. 7 in the morning, right after a shift, her voice soft and rehearsed. She talked about getting older. About loneliness. About eating dinner alone for 23 years. I just don't want to spend my last years alone in that apartment. There was a crack in her voice that sounded real. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in scrubs, and listened. Let her finish. Then I said, Vivian, you're welcome to visit. But this house has one owner, and that's me. I'd be happy to help you explore senior living options with community and activities. Silence. Then the mask fell. Senior living? I'm 63, not 80. Grant would never let you send me to one of those places. I'm not sending you anywhere. I'm offering to help. There's a difference. She hung up without a goodbye. That night, Grant came home near midnight. He didn't say a word. Just went to the guest room and closed the door. I sat in the kitchen and thought about what Vivian had said. I just want us to be a family. It sounded warm. What she meant was, I want what you have. And she wasn't asking. A week later, Vivian arrived with a shoebox held together with a rubber band. She spread old photographs across the kitchen table like playing cards. One stopped me. A 2-story colonial with green shutters, a wraparound porch, a swing set in the yard. Salem, Virginia. Vivian, maybe 40, dark-haired, smiling wide. Grant beside her, maybe 10, holding a baseball glove. That was our house, she said. 4 bedrooms. I painted every room myself. She turned the photo over. Written in pencil, First Christmas, 1998. She told me about the day she packed the car. Grant was 12, carrying his pillow and a backpack with 3 comic books. He sat in the back and asked, Mom, are we ever going home? Her eyes filled. For one honest moment I saw her. Not the woman who changed my curtains or demanded a key. Just a mother who lost her house and never recovered. Then she said it. Don't be selfish, Theresa. You have parents who buy you houses. I had nothing. I picked up the photo and handed it back. I'm sorry for what you went through. Truly. But taking my house won't undo what happened to yours. She snapped the rubber band around the box and left without a word. Tuesday's shift ended at 7. I drove home with the windows down, trying to stay awake long enough to shower. I opened the front door and smelled fresh coffee. Courtney was asleep on my living room couch, wrapped in one of my blankets. My laptop was on the coffee table, moved from my locked office. A plate with toast crumbs on the armrest. The fridge raided. Leftover pasta gone, deli turkey, both yogurts. I checked the smart lock app. Courtney Myers unlocked front door. 2:13 p.m. I had never given Courtney access. I called Grant. He picked up groggy. How does Courtney have access to the smart lock? Pause. She asked me. It's just for convenience. You added your sister to my lock after I specifically said no one else gets access. You're overreacting. Did you or did you not add her? Yes. She's family. I opened the app right there in the living room while Courtney blinked awake on the couch. Removed her access. What's happening? She asked. You're in my house without my permission. That's what's happening. She left 20 minutes later, barefoot to the car, shoes in hand, texting furiously. I reset the admin settings. Removed Grant's admin privileges. Set myself as sole administrator. One admin. One authority. No exceptions. Then the campaign started. Grant sat me down on a Wednesday with a look designed to read as hurt but landing closer to strategy. My mother cried all night because you humiliated Courtney. You're tearing this family apart. I said nothing. He stood up. Fine. Be the gatekeeper. Be the warden. He slept in the guest room and stopped contributing to the joint bills. Not gradually. All at once. The automatic transfer from his paycheck just stopped. I noticed 2 weeks later when the balance was dropping faster than it should. I pulled 3 months of statements. Grant's transfer, the amount we'd agreed on for shared expenses, hadn't come through since April. 3 months. No transfer. No explanation. No mention. I printed the statements, highlighted the missing deposits, and found Grant in the garage. Where's the money? He looked up from his phone. What money? Your share of the bills. 3 months. Nothing transferred. I've been paying for Mom's things. She needs help. How much help? A few hundred here and there. I held up the statements. This isn't a few hundred, Grant. This is over $5,000 missing in 3 months. He looked at the papers. Looked away. His jaw was tight. Hands in his pockets. Grant always put his hands in his pockets when he was lying. I waited until he left for work the next morning. Sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and every bank statement I could access going back 8 months. It took 40 minutes to find the pattern. Starting in January, recurring charges to a vendor called Myers Home Solutions. The amounts varied. $2,600 in January. $3,200 in February. $4,800 in March. Each one categorized as home improvement contractor. I'd never heard of Myers Home Solutions. I'd never seen a contractor at my house. I searched the name. No website. No Google listing. No physical address. Just a Virginia LLC filing with the State Corporation Commission. Registered agent, Grant A. Myers. Filed 8 months ago. I leaned back in my chair. Then I walked through every room in the house. The roof Grant had supposedly repaired? No new shingles. The hardwood floors allegedly refinished? Same scuff marks I'd been staring at for 5 years. The plumbing repairs? My father had done those himself last spring on a Sunday afternoon, free of charge. Every invoice was for work that never happened. Every dollar went somewhere the bank statement alone couldn't trace. I didn't confront Grant that night. I made dinner. Asked about his day. Listened to him talk about a sales quota and a difficult client. And after he went to bed, I opened a new browser tab, typed divorce attorney Roanoke, Virginia, and started reading reviews. Because confrontation without evidence is just a fight. And I wasn't interested in fighting. I was interested in winning. 3 days later, I found the rest. Grant had a small desk in the corner of the guest room, bottom drawer locked. I'd given him a spare key to that desk years ago when we still shared everything. He'd forgotten. I hadn't. I opened it during my lunch break on a day Grant was out of town. Inside, a stack of LLC operating documents, a checkbook for an account I'd never seen, and one bank statement. Cardinal Community Credit Union. Account holder, Vivian M. Myers. Balance, $19,400. I scanned the transaction history. Deposits, clockwork, between the 15th and 20th of every month. Source, electronic transfer from Myers Home Solutions LLC. January, 2600. February, 3200. March, 4800. April, 3400. May, 2900. June, 4200. July, 2300. Total, $23,400. Every dollar matched the charges on our joint account. Every deposit corresponded to an invoice for renovation work that was never performed on a house Grant didn't own. I photographed every page. Sent everything to my personal email. Then I placed it all back in the exact position I'd found it. Same stack, same angle, drawer locked, key back in the screwdriver drawer. I drove to the hospital for my afternoon shift, parked in the garage, and sat with both hands on the steering wheel for 5 minutes. I wasn't crying. I'd do that later, alone, at 2 in the morning after a shift. Right now I was calculating. Ellen Park's office was on the second floor of a brick building on Church Avenue. 45, direct, the kind of calm that comes from spending 2 decades untangling other people's marriages. I sat across her desk the next day and laid everything out. The deed, the gift letter, 6 months of joint account statements with the Myers Home Solutions charges highlighted, and photographs of Vivian's bank statement. Ellen put on her reading glasses, went through each document, and didn't speak for a full 5 minutes. Then she looked up. The house is your separate property. The deed is in your maiden name. The gift letter is notarized and dated before the marriage. He has 0 claim. I exhaled. What about the LLC? Dissipation of marital assets. He moved joint funds to his mother through a fabricated company. A forensic accountant can trace every dollar, and a judge will want to see that trace. She slid a sticky note across the desk. Sandra Okafor. Forensic accountant. Specializes in divorce cases. Call her today. Timeline is about 3 weeks for a case this clean. The trail isn't hidden. It's just unexamined. She looked at me evenly. Don't tip your hand. Don't confront him. Don't change any account access. Let the forensic work finish first. 3 weeks. I just needed to keep everything normal for 3 weeks. The hardest part wasn't finding the evidence. It was sitting across from Grant every night, eating dinner, asking about his day, knowing exactly where the money was going. 3 weeks of watching someone lie to your face while you hold the proof in your bag. If you've ever had to play the long game, you know exactly what that costs. I counted every one of those 21 days. Went to work, came home, made pasta on Tuesdays, chicken on Thursdays. Asked about his sales numbers. Grant started warming up. Eating at the table again instead of the guest room. Even brought me coffee one morning before my shift. He thought I'd given up. He thought the fight about keys and locks had burned itself out and I'd accepted the new normal. I let him think that. Meanwhile, Sandra Okafor worked from a small office on Franklin Road and was thorough in the way I most respected in medicine, no drama, just precision. She pulled the LLC's full filing history, cross-referenced every invoice with withdrawals from our joint account, matched deposit dates to Vivian's savings account. Her findings were worse than I expected. Beyond the $23,400 in fabricated invoices, Grant had opened a credit card in the LLC's name. Balance, $6,200. Charges included a laptop, a leather recliner, 2 months of storage unit rental, and a flat-screen television. None of those items were in our house. Sandra handed me the report. 14 pages, tabbed with exhibits. 11 fabricated invoices. Total misappropriated from the joint account, $23,400, plus $6,200 in undisclosed LLC credit card debt. I held it in my lap and felt its weight. Not the paper. The truth. Documented, verified, and ready. Thursday evening, Grant sat down at the kitchen table with the serious face he saved for sales presentations. Theresa, I've been thinking. Mom's apartment lease is up next month. I want her to move in with us permanently. He said it the way someone presents a finished decision. Not a question. A conclusion. I kept my voice neutral. Does your mother know? He smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from him in weeks. She's excited. She's already started packing. Already packing. Before he'd asked me. Before I'd agreed. Before anyone had consulted the person whose name was on the deed. Already packing, I repeated. Before you even asked me? He leaned forward. Theresa, you married into this family. Don't make this about ownership. There it was again. His mother's words coming out of his mouth. I looked at him across the table, thought about the 14-page report in my bag, and said something that surprised him. Okay. Let's talk about it at dinner. I want both families there. His face lit up. That's a great idea. I'll set it up. He went to bed happy that night. I stayed up until 1 in the morning going over Sandra's report page by page. Friday morning I called my dad. Dad, I need the original deed and the gift letter. And I need you and Mom at dinner Saturday night. Silence. Then, is everything okay, Ree? It will be. I promise. Just bring the documents. The originals? The originals. He didn't ask anything else. When his daughter asked for something specific, he delivered it. No interrogation. No fuss. Just action. At noon I had my final meeting with Ellen Park. She handed me the drafted divorce petition. 12 pages. She'd also prepared a motion to preserve separate property, a legal filing that would formally establish my house as outside the marital estate. You file Monday morning. Roanoke City Circuit Court, 8:30. Bring the petition, the property motion, and copies of Sandra's forensic report. She looked at me over her glasses. Saturday night, you tell him in front of witnesses. Let his reaction be his reaction. You stay calm, state facts, and leave the emotions to him. I nodded. She held my gaze. Theresa, you've done everything right. The house is yours. The money trail is documented. The only thing you need to do Saturday is tell the truth. I drove home with 3 things in the passenger seat. Ellen's petition. Sandra's report. The folder I'd been carrying for 2 weeks. I put everything into a manila envelope, thick and heavy with paper and consequence, and hung my bag on the hook behind the kitchen door. Then I started prepping dinner for the next day. Chicken marsala, Vivian's favorite. Because there's something deeply satisfying about cooking a beautiful meal for someone who's about to have a very bad evening. Saturday I was up at 6. Cleaned the house, set the dining table with the good plates. Not Vivian's china. Mine. Polished the glasses, put fresh flowers on the sideboard, cooked all day. Grant hovered, cheerful, completely unhelpful. Mom is so excited, he said around noon, sampling the marsala with a spoon. She's bringing her good china. That's nice, I said. Vivian arrived at 5 carrying a box of dishes wrapped in cloth napkins. The china from her old house in Salem. The only nice thing she'd kept from that life. Courtney followed with 2 overnight bags. I thought I'd stay the weekend since we're celebrating. Celebrating? I asked. Grant said you agreed to let Mom move in. She set the bags by the stairs. This is going to be so great. I can come visit all the time. I looked at Courtney, looked at Grant. He was in the kitchen pretending not to hear. My parents arrived at 5:30. My dad carried a brown envelope tucked under his arm. My mom carried a pecan pie and a face that said she already knew something was wrong. Warren shook Grant's hand, kissed Vivian on the cheek, and sat down at the table like a man who'd been told to show up and keep quiet. 7 people around a table meant for 8. Grant at the head. Vivian to his right, beaming. Courtney beside her, scrolling her phone. Warren and June on the left, close together. Me at the other end with a bag on the hook behind me and 14 pages inside it. Dinner was pleasant. Vivian complimented the marsala 3 times. Courtney asked for seconds. Grant refilled wine glasses and made a joke about needing a bigger table. My parents ate quietly. Warren chewing slowly. June watching everything. After plates were cleared and coffee poured, Grant tapped his glass with a fork. The room went still. He stood up, one hand on the table, the other on the back of Vivian's chair. I have an announcement. Mom's lease is ending next month, and Theresa and I have agreed that she should move in with us permanently. Vivian clasped her hands. Her eyes were shining. Courtney clapped twice. This is happening. We're going to convert the study into a sitting room for Mom. Give her some real space. And Courtney, you're welcome here anytime. I've already ordered a new key set for the front lock. He looked at me with that salesman's smile. That confident tilt of the chin. Right, babe? Every pair of eyes in the room turned to me. Vivian expectant. Courtney grinning. Grant already celebrating. Warren still as stone. June holding her coffee cup with both hands. I set my napkin on the table, pushed my chair back, stood up, and smiled. Not a forced smile. Not a nervous one. The kind that comes from being truly ready for a moment you've been building toward for 3 weeks. Grant. My voice was even, steady. The same voice I use in the ICU when a family is falling apart and someone needs to hold the room together. I'm glad everyone is here. Because there's something I need to say about this house. I reached behind my chair, took the manila folder from my bag, set it on the table, and opened it. The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. This is the deed to this house. I held up the first document. Recorded with the Roanoke City Circuit Court. The owner listed is Theresa June Howaren. My maiden name. Not Theresa Myers. Not Grant and Theresa. Just me. Grant's smile faltered. Theresa, what are you doing? I'm responding to your announcement. I set the deed down and picked up the gift letter. This is the notarized gift letter from my parents, dated 2 weeks before our wedding. It states, this property is gifted solely to Theresa June Howaren as her sole and separate property. I looked at my father. Dad, would you like to confirm? Warren cleared his throat. Every word. Your mother and I saved for that house for 20 years. We bought it for you. Not for anyone else at this table. Vivian's face had gone white. Her hands were flat on the table, pressing down like she was holding herself in place. But the house isn't even the worst part. I pulled out Sandra's report. 14 pages. Tabbed. Bank records in the exhibits. Over the past 8 months, Grant created a company called Myers Home Solutions LLC. A company with no employees, no office, and no clients. He billed our joint checking account 11 times for renovation work on this house. Work that was never performed. I turned to the first exhibit page and read the figures calmly, like a nurse reading vitals. $3,200 for a roof repair that never happened. I glanced at the ceiling. Same roof. $4,800 for hardwood floor refinishing. I looked at the floor. Same scuff since we moved in. $2,600 for plumbing repairs. I looked at my father. Dad, you fixed the plumbing yourself last spring, didn't you? Warren nodded. A Sunday afternoon. Took me 3 hours. Free of charge. I looked at Vivian. Total billed to our joint account through this shell company, $23,400. Every dollar deposited into a savings account at Cardinal Community Credit Union. I paused. In your name. The color drained from Vivian's face in stages, like watching a tide go out. Grant's mouth was moving but nothing was coming out. He gripped the back of his chair. Theresa, stop. You don't understand what, I understand perfectly, Grant. I have 14 pages of bank records, LLC filings, and a forensic accountant's analysis that says exactly what happened. You created a shell company. You invoiced our joint account for work that was never done. And you funneled the money to your mother. Courtney looked at Grant. What company? Grant. What is she talking about? He didn't answer her. He was staring at the report in my hands like it was a weapon. Which, in a way, it was. Grant tried to regroup. Straightened up, ran a hand through his hair, pointed at me. You went through my things. You hired someone to investigate your own husband. I reviewed our joint checking account. I'm a co-holder on that account. I have every right to review it. And when I found $23,000 missing, I hired a forensic accountant. The same kind of professional divorce courts rely on every day. His voice cracked. Divorce courts? Vivian's hand slammed the table. Grant, tell her she's wrong. Tell her this is a misunderstanding. Grant looked at his mother, then at me. He said nothing. Grant. Vivian's voice went high. Now. Tell her. Courtney pushed back from her chair slowly. Wait. The LLC. Is that why you asked me to sign that form last month? You said it was for work. Grant's head snapped toward her. Courtney, shut up. My mother's voice came from across the table. Quiet, clear, and final. Don't talk to her like that. It was the first time June had spoken all evening. Warren put his hand on her arm. Not to stop her. Just to be close. Vivian turned on me. You ungrateful girl. After everything this family has done for you. I tilted my head. What has this family done for me, Vivian? Your son stole from me. Your daughter slept in my house without permission. And you've been collecting $23,000 of my money in a savings account. So please, tell me exactly what your family has done for me. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. The silence in that room was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I set the report on the table and placed both hands flat beside it. I've spoken with a family law attorney. I'm filing for divorce on Monday morning. The room froze. Grant's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and fear. All in a single breath. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Over money? Over trust. Over the fact that you created a fake company to steal from our joint account. Over the fact that you handed out keys to my house, added people to my lock, and announced your mother was moving in. All without asking the person whose name is on the deed. He stepped toward me. We can fix this. Theresa, we can talk about this. We are talking about it. Right now. In front of both families. Exactly the way you made your announcement without asking me first. My lawyer will file a motion to preserve this home as separate property. The deed, the gift letter, and the complete absence of any commingling make that straightforward. She'll also be submitting the forensic report documenting dissipation of marital assets through Myers Home Solutions LLC. I paused. You should get a lawyer, Grant. A real one. Vivian stood up shaking. Grant, do something. He looked at his mother. For the first time, he didn't move on command. He just stood there, jaw working, staring at the report on the table like it might catch fire if he looked at it long enough. Vivian. I said it quietly. The room went still. I looked at her across the table. She was standing now, one hand on the back of her chair, the other pressed against her sternum. I know what happened to you 23 years ago. I know you lost your house. I know Grant was 12 and scared. I know Courtney was too young to understand. And I'm sorry, genuinely sorry, that no one was there to help you fight for what was yours. Her chin trembled. Her eyes filled. For one suspended second, she was the woman in that photograph. Standing in front of a house in Salem with green shutters and a son who still believed she could fix anything. But what happened to you does not give you the right to take what isn't yours. My parents worked 20 years for this house. My father crawled under other people's homes for 3 decades so I could have one of my own. My mother stood behind a register for 22 years and never complained once. And you and Grant tried to take it with keys, with locks, with fake invoices, and with $23,000 that didn't belong to either of you. I stood straight, hands steady. You told me once that I married into this family. That the house came with me. Here is the truth, I married Grant. The house was mine before, during, and after. Vivian slammed both hands on the table. Plates rattled. Coffee sloshed. You have no idea what it's like to lose everything. I held her gaze. You're right. I don't. Because I refuse to let it happen. Grant exploded. Full volume, face red, veins visible on his neck. The salesman gone. The charming son-in-law gone? You're destroying this family over some paperwork? Some money? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. $23,000 isn't some money, Grant. It's what my dad earns in 5 months of crawling under houses fixing other people's pipes. Warren flinched. June pressed her hand over his. Grant jabbed a finger at me. I did it for us. For our family. You did it for your mother. With money from our joint account. Through a company that doesn't exist. On invoices for work that was never performed. That's not family, Grant. That's fraud. Courtney stood up quietly, picked up her purse. I'm going to the car. Grant whipped around. Courtney, sit down. No. She didn't look at him. She walked to the front door, opened it, and left it open behind her. The night air came in. Cool. Early October. Grant looked around the table. His mother shaking. His sister gone. My father stone-faced. My mother crying silently. And me still standing in the same spot. Same posture. Same volume. Grant, I said. I don't hate you. But I will never trust you again, and I will not share my home with someone who steals from me and lies about it. He grabbed his wine glass off the table and hurled it at the wall behind me. It missed by a foot, shattered against the wainscoting. Red wine splattered across the white tablecloth, the wall, the floor. I didn't flinch. It's over, Grant. You gave her a key. You gave her access to the lock. You gave her $23,000 of our money. And none of it was yours to give. He stood there, jaw clenched, wine dripping down the wall behind me. No argument. No charm. No angle. Just a man standing in a house that was never his, caught by the woman he thought would never check the receipts. Vivian pushed to standing. I'm calling a lawyer. I'd recommend it, I said. Make sure it's one you can afford. She turned to collect her china. The dishes wrapped in cloth napkins. The last nice things from her old life. She picked up the stack. Her hands were shaking so badly the top plate slid, dropped onto the kitchen tile, and split with a clean sharp crack that echoed through the room. Porcelain on stone. Nobody moved. Vivian looked at the broken plate. Cream-colored, gold rim, faded floral. Then she looked at me. You'll regret this. I met her eyes. No, Vivian. I won't. I straightened the papers on the table, set the report squarely on top of the deed and the gift letter, and said the last thing I needed to say in that room. A home isn't something you just deserve. It's something you earn. Vivian walked out. Grant followed. Courtney was already in the car, engine running. The front door closed behind them. The house was quiet. Wine dripping down the wall. And I was still standing at the table, hand steady, heart pounding, not a single tear on my face. Not yet. 10 seconds of silence. Then my mother's voice, small and careful. Are you okay? I sat down. My hands had started to tremble. The adrenaline wearing off the way it does after a code, when the patient is stable and your body finally remembers to shake. I will be. Warren got up from his chair, walked to the broken plate on the kitchen floor, and knelt down. 61 years old, 2 bad knees, picking up pieces of porcelain one by one. June joined him. They didn't say anything. They just worked. The way they had always worked. Quietly, together, without being asked. I watched my parents kneeling on the floor of the house they bought me, cleaning up after a woman who had tried to take it from them. It was the last time anyone would clean up after the Myers family in my home. Warren dropped the pieces into the trash, straightened up, put his hands on the counter, and looked at me across the kitchen. I knew there was a reason I put the deed in your maiden name. I almost laughed. Almost. You did good, Your granddad would have been proud. We sat together at the half-empty table and ate pecan pie. The flowers were still on the sideboard. The wine stain was drying on the wall. Grant's chair was pushed back at an angle. But the house felt different. Lighter. Like a window had been left open and the air was finally moving again. Monday morning, 8:30 sharp. Ellen Park and I walked into the Roanoke City Circuit Court clerk's office. Petition for legal separation. Motion to preserve separate property. Sandra's forensic report, Exhibit A. Grant was served at his office Tuesday afternoon. His lawyer called Ellen that week. The conversation was short. He'd reviewed the documentation and advised Grant not to contest the property claim. The house was never seriously in dispute. The deed was clean. The gift letter was notarized. I'd never added Grant to the title. I'd paid property taxes and insurance from my personal account, never the joint one. There was nothing to commingle. Grant moved out that same week. Virginia requires 6 months of separation before filing for absolute divorce when there are no children. I waited. We signed a separation agreement in month 2. Ellen filed the divorce petition on the first eligible day. The equitable distribution hearing took 3 hours. The judge reviewed the forensic report. Grant was ordered to reimburse $23,400 from his share of the remaining joint assets. The $6,200 in LLC credit card debt was assigned entirely to him. Ellen negotiated a settlement on Vivian's savings account. Vivian returned $15,000. The remaining $4,400 she'd already withdrawn as cash was written off. Grant didn't fight it. His lawyer told him he had no ground, and fighting would only add legal fees he couldn't afford. The divorce was granted 9 months after that Saturday dinner. I kept the house. I kept my career. I kept the maple tree my father planted in the front yard the day I moved in. The last time I saw Grant, he was loading boxes into a rental truck in my driveway. He didn't look at me. I watched from the kitchen window until he pulled away. Then I locked the front door and made coffee. The first weekend alone was quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not empty quiet. Clean quiet. The kind that comes after you've stopped holding your breath. I walked through every room. In the guest room, I stripped the floral bedding Vivian had picked and placed it in a donation box. Put on fresh white sheets, the ones I'd originally bought, sitting in the linen closet for 2 years. In the study, the lock was gone. I set my laptop back on the desk, put my reference materials on the shelf, and sat in my chair for the first time in months without feeling like a trespasser in my own home. In the kitchen, I took down Vivian's cream lace curtains and put back the navy linen ones my mother and I had chosen together the week I moved in. They still fit. I opened the smart lock app. Went to settings. Removed all users. Changed the master code. Set myself as sole administrator. One user. One code. One key. That afternoon I bought a flat of marigolds from the garden center, my father's suggestion. Planted them along the front walkway in the October sun, hands in the dirt, knees on the grass my parents had paid for. When I finished, I took a photo and texted it to my dad with one line, "I kept it, Dad." He didn't reply for an hour. Then a thumbs up emoji. Good. Here's what I learned. A home isn't just walls and a roof. It's the boundary you draw around everything you've worked for. And no one, not a husband, not a mother-in-law, not guilt, not sympathy, gets to erase that boundary without your permission. My parents didn't just give me a house. They gave me a lesson. Know what's yours. Protect it with paperwork. And never apologize for refusing to hand it over. That's my story. One dinner table. One folder. And a house that stayed exactly where it belonged. If this story reminded you to check whose name is on your deed, or to keep your separate property separate, take that as a sign. Do it today. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them right now. Subscribe, drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.